100 years ago this month, Augusta saw its first action in its new federal courthouse. It was unprecedented, it was unexpected, and it was unbelievable. Unprecedented because the new courthouse was new. The federal government announced its construction in 1912, and over the next 4 years, Augustans saw a site being selected near the Union Station, the site being cleared, and the beautiful Italian Renaissance Revival federal building beginning to go up. Most people probably didn't want to end up in a federal courtroom, but the brand new post office was on the first floor, and they had open house in February of 1916. Court started April 3rd. The court hearing itself was probably a mystery to most Augustans, including the reporter for the Chronicle. He wrote that the first case in the new courtroom would probably be routine. He was wrong. That's because the first case was an inheritance dispute involving the fortune of one of Georgia's wealthiest businessmen, James Monroe Smith. Smith was an Athens area farmer who served in the legislature and once ran for governor. He had the good fortune to make a fortune and the bad fortune to die without a will, or at least one they didn't find immediately. What they did find immediately was controversy. If your last name is Smith and you die with no family, everyone named Smith can claim you as kin. And just about everyone did. And they all brought their lawyers. It was described as such an array of lawyers never seen before in Augusta or probably anywhere in Georgia. The rough estimate was 150 attorneys. Why would you need 150 attorneys? Because there were 600,000 claimants. The case had ended up in federal court because there were Smiths from Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Maryland, and Tennessee who wanted a share of Uncle Jimmy's millions. In the midst of all this, some good news. They found James Smith's will. And some bad news. It was 30 years old, and many of the people mentioned in it were dead. One of the departed was his nephew, Robert Smith, whose widow and son had also passed away. But Robert Smith still had a daughter, Frances, who had recently become Mrs. James Shehane. Together, the new couple became millionaires. Mrs. Shehane and her husband were good people. Everybody said so. They put most of their money back into Oglethorpe County. They gave a bunch of it to the Baptist Church and then began to invest in their community. This has the makings of a wonderful story, but it didn't turn out that way. Mr. Shehane invested in several banks, hoping to help local farmers and businesses. The banks failed. The new house they had fixed up, it burned, just like the house they replaced it with. When they died, they had less money than they had before they became millionaires. There's probably a wonderful lesson in all this, just as there's probably been a wonderful lesson in every court case heard in this old building. Courts are like that. Life is too.